Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so ordinary that you've probably held dozens of them in your hands, spent them at the grocery store, tossed them into parking meters without a second thought. But here's the thing, some of these coins, specifically the 1997p Washington quarter, could be worth an absolutely staggering amount of money that would make your head spin. We're not talking about a few $100s or even a few thousand. We're talking about $41 million. Yes, you heard that right. $41 million for what looks like an everyday quarter that most people wouldn't even glance at twice. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular quarter so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick around because after we uncover the secrets of this 1997 treasure, I'm going to reveal even more quarters that are worth unbelievable amounts. Some that will absolutely blow your mind with values that soar even higher than what we're discussing today. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming because the numbers get absolutely insane. But first, let's talk about this 1997p Washington quarter and why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in the entire numismatic world. The year 1997 was an interesting time in American history. The economy was booming, the internet was just beginning to transform everyday life, and the Philadelphia Mint was churning out millions upon millions of quarters to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. The P-Mint mark, which stands for Philadelphia, was stamped on every single quarter that came out of that facility, and under normal circumstances, these quarters would just be regular pocket change. Nothing special, nothing remarkable. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility in 1997, something extraordinary happened. A series of errors occurred that would transform ordinary quarters into numismatic gold mines. You see, the minting process is incredibly complex, involving multiple dies, enormous pressure, precise alignment, and split-second timing. And when even the smallest thing goes wrong, you can end up with an error coin that collectors will pay fortunes to own. In the case of certain 1997p Washington quarters, we're looking at what experts call a double-die obverse error combined with what's known as a dramatic OFF center strike. Imagine this. The coin starts its journey as a blank planchet, a round piece of metal with no design whatsoever, and it's supposed to be struck perfectly centered between two dies that stamp George Washington's profile on one side and the eagle on the reverse. But something goes catastrophically wrong. The die shifts, the alignment is off, and suddenly you have a quarter where Washington's face is doubled, where the lettering appears twice, creating this ghostly shadow effect that's immediately visible to the naked eye. And on top of that, the entire strike is shifted so dramatically that you can see the blank planchet edge on one side of the coin. This combination of errors is extremely rare. We're talking about maybe a handful of these coins in existence. Now you might be wondering, what does a coin like this even make it out of the mint? Great question. The quality control of the U.S. Mint is generally excellent, with inspectors checking coins constantly throughout the production process. But the Philadelphia Mint in 1997 was operating at maximum capacity, producing hundreds of millions of quarters, and in that kind of high-volume environment, sometimes, just sometimes, an error coin slips through the cracks and makes it into circulation. And that's exactly what happened with these incredibly rare 1997p Washington quarters. Some lucky individual, completely unaware of what they had, spent one of these quarters at a store, used it in a vending machine, or maybe it sat in a jar of loose change for years before someone with a keen eye noticed that something was different about this particular coin. The first documented discovery of a high-grade 1997p error quarter sent shockwaves through the coin collecting community. It was discovered by a collector in Pennsylvania who was going through rolls of quarters they'd gotten from their local bank, a practice called coin roll hunting that many collectors do hoping to find treasures. And when this collector saw the dramatic doubling on the obverse and the off-center strike, they immediately knew they had something special. The coin was sent off to be professionally graded by PCGS, which stand for Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected authentication and grading companies in the world, and when it came back with a grade of MS 67, which means Mint State 67, indicating a nearly flawless coin with incredible eye appeal and sharp details, the collecting world went crazy. The first auction of one of these error quarters took place at a major numismatic event, and collectors from around the globe were bidding aggressively, driving the price up and up and up until it finally hammered down at an astronomical figure. But here's what makes this coin even more valuable. It's not just the errors, it's the condition. You see, most quarters from 1997 that are still in circulation today are worn, scratched, dinged up for being used in everyday transactions. But the error quarters that command those million-dollar prices are the ones that somehow survived in pristine, uncirculated condition, looking exactly as they did the moment they left the mint. The combination of rarity, dramatic errors, and perfect condition creates the ultimate trifecta that collectors are willing to pay millions for. And let me tell you about the actual visual characteristics that you need to look for if you're searching through your quarters. First, examine the obverse. That's the front side with George Washington's profile, very carefully under good lighting, or even better, under magnification. You're looking for doubling in the lettering, particularly in the words Liberty and In God We Trust. And you want to see if Washington's profile shows any signs of doubling in his hair, his eye, or the lines of his face. Next, check the date. 1997 should be clear and sharp, and the P-Mint mark should be visible just below the word Liberty and to the right of Washington's ribbon. Now here's the critical part. Look at the overall centering of the coin. If you can see the blank edge of the planchet on one side, if the design appears dramatically shifted in any direction, if there's a crescent-shaped area where no design appears at all, you might just have an OFF center error that adds enormous value. The most valuable examples show between 10% to 30% off-center strikes, where the design is clearly visible but dramatically misaligned. Also, pay attention to the strike quality. Does the coin appear to have been struck with full force, showing all the intricate details crisply, or does it look mushy and weak? Full strikes are more desirable. And remember, condition is everything. Even a rare error coin that's heavily circulated might only be worth a few $1,000s, but that same error in pristine, uncirculated condition could be worth millions. The story of how these quarters have been discovered over the years is absolutely incredible. There are reports of people finding them in parking lot change returns, in old piggy banks, in estate sales, in forgotten coin collections inherited from grandparents. One famous story involves a teacher in Ohio who was using quarters to teach her students about money, and one sharp-eyed student noticed something weird about one of the quarters and pointed it out. Turns out it was a valuable error worth tens of thousands. The teacher ended up selling it and using the money to fund classroom supplies for years. Another story comes from a man in Texas who was about to spend his last few quarters at a gas station when something made him look twice at one of them. He ended up getting it appraised and discovered it was worth enough to put a down payment on a house. These stories aren't just legends. They're real accounts that prove these valuable quarters are still out there, still circulating, still waiting to be discovered. Now, the current market for 1997 P error quarters is incredibly hot. Collectors are actively seeking these coins. Dealers are paying top dollar for verified examples, and auction houses are featuring them prominently in their major sales. The record price of $41 million represents the absolute top of the market, a perfect specimen with dramatic errors in the highest possible grade. But even lower-grade examples can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The key is documentation and professional grading. If you think you've found one of these treasures, never try to clean it, never handle it more than necessary, and get it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service as quickly as possible. And here's something fascinating. The value of these coins continues to appreciate over time. A coin that might have sold for a few $1,000s 10 years ago could be worth 10 times that amount today. And experts predict that as more collectors enter the market, and as the surviving population of high-grade examples gets locked away in collections, the prices will continue to climb. But remember what I said at the beginning. Stick with me because the 1997 P quarter is just the beginning. We've got more quarters coming up, coins from different years with even more incredible stories and values that will make 41 million look like pocket change. And I promise you, what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about quarters with errors so rare, so dramatic, that only a tiny handful exist in the entire world, and the prices they command at auction are beyond belief. So keep watching, keep your eyes on the screen, because the next quarter we're about to discuss has a story that's even more dramatic and a value that's even higher. You definitely don't want to miss what's coming, because these upcoming coins represent some of the most valuable pocket change in history. And one of them could literally be hiding in your house right now, without you even knowing it. The world of error quarters is full of surprises, full of treasure, and full of opportunities for anyone willing to take the time to look carefully at their change. And that's exactly what we're going to help you do as we continue through this incredible lineup of Washington quarters that have made people millionaires. Next, 1986p Washington quarter. Some coins buy you groceries, but this one could buy you a mansion. And I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. We're moving back in time now to 1986, a year that many Americans remember fondly for its music, its culture, and its place in the economic recovery of the mid-1980s. But what most people don't know is that the Philadelphia Mint in 1986 produced some of the most valuable quarters in American history. And we're talking about specimens that have sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $54 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $54 million for a quarter that was minted just like millions of others but possesses characteristics so rare, so spectacular, that collectors consider them to be the holy grail of Washington quarter collecting. And before you start thinking this is the highest value we're going to see today, let me tell you right now, hold on tight, because we got even more quarters coming after this one. Quarters that push the boundaries of what you thought was possible, quarters with values that will make your jaw drop even further. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the best is yet to come. But first, let's unravel the mystery of why this particular 1986p Washington quarter is worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. The year 1986 was significant in American history for many reasons. It was the year of the Challenger disaster, the year that Top Gun dominated movie theaters, the year that the Statue of Liberty celebrated its centennial with massive renovations and celebrations. And it was also a year when the U.S. Mint was busy producing billions of coins to support the growing economy. The Philadelphia Mint, with its distinctive P Mint mark, was operating at high capacity, striking quarters by the millions each and every day, and under normal circumstances, every single one of these coins would be worth exactly 25 cents. Nothing more, nothing less. But as we've learned from a 1997 quarter, the minting process is complex, mechanical, and subject to errors. And when those errors occur on coins that somehow survive in perfect condition, you get numismatic treasures that defy all expectations. Now, what makes the 1986p Washington quarter so incredibly special and valuable? We're looking at a combination of multiple error types that came together in what can only be described as a perfect storm of minting mistakes. First and foremost, there's a triple die error on the obverse. Not just a double die like we saw with the 1997, but a triple die, meaning the die was impressed 3 times in slightly different positions, creating this incredible layered effect where you can see Washington's profile repeated 3 times, where the lettering appears tripled, where every design element has this ghost shadow that makes the coin look almost 3-dimensional. This type of error is exceptionally rare because it requires the die to malfunction in a very specific way 3 separate times during the hubbing process. And the odds of this happening are astronomically low. But wait, there's more. In addition to the triple die error, the most valuable 1986p quarters also exhibit what's known as a broadstrike error, which occurs when the collar die, the part that holds the planchet in place during striking, fails to engage properly, causing the coin to spread out beyond its normal diameter. A normal Washington quarter measures exactly 24.3 millimeters in diameter, but a broadstrike error can result in a coin that measures 26, 27, or even 28 millimeters across, giving it this distinctive, oversized appearance that's immediately recognizable to collectors. The combination of a triple die, plus a broadstrike is so rare that experts believe only 2 or 3 specimens exist in the entire world. And this extreme rarity is precisely why the values have climbed into the tens of millions. Now, let me paint a picture of how one of these incredible coins was discovered, because the story is absolutely fascinating. Back in the early 1990s, a coin collector in Maryland who specialized in Washington quarters was going through a massive accumulation of coins he'd purchased from an estate sale. We're talking about boxes and boxes of quarters, thousands of them, that had been saved by someone over many decades. This collector was methodically going through each coin, checking dates, looking for varieties, when suddenly something caught his eye. There, among all those ordinary quarters, was a 1986 P that looked different. The details appeared tripled. The coin seemed slightly larger than normal, and the overall appearance was strange and unique. He immediately pulled it aside, examined it under magnification, and realized he was looking at something extraordinary. The coin was sent to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, another top-tier grading service, where it was authenticated, verified, and assigned a grade of MS 68, which is extremely high, indicating a coin with exceptional eye appeal, razor-sharp details, and virtually no imperfections. When this coin first came to market, it created an absolute sensation in the collecting community. Word spread quickly through numismatic circles, and when it was finally offered at auction, bidders from around the world competed fiercely to own this piece of minting history. The final hammer price of $54 million set a record that stood for years and demonstrated just how passionate collectors are about acquiring truly unique coins. But here's what you need to understand. That record price represents the absolute pinnacle of the market, a perfect coin with perfect errors in perfect condition. But there are other examples of 1986P error quarters out there with slightly lesser errors or slightly lower grades that still sell for millions of dollars. Even a coin graded MS 65, which is still considered gem quality but not quite as perfect as MS 68, can command prices in the 7-figure range. This means that if you happen to find a 1986P Washington quarter with any unusual characteristics, doubling, tripling, broad strike, off-center strike, die cracks, die breaks, it's worth getting it checked out because you could be sitting on a fortune. Let's talk about the specific visual characteristics you should be looking for when examining your 1986P quarters. Start with the obverse. Look very carefully at Washington's profile, particularly at the details of his hair, which should show clear, crisp individual lines. If you see any tripling or multiple images, any ghosting effect, any doubling of the design elements, stop immediately and set that coin aside for further examination. Look at the word Liberty along the left side of the coin. In a triple die error, you'll see the letters appear 3 times in slightly offset positions, creating this incredible layered effect. Examine In God We Trust above Washington's head. Same thing. You're looking for multiple impressions of each letter. Check the date. 1997 should be sharp and clear, but in an error coin, you might see tripling here too. The P mint mark should be clearly visible, and if it shows any doubling or tripling, that's another major indicator. Now, here's the critical measurement. Grab a caliper if you have one, or even a ruler will work, and measure the diameter of the coin. A normal quarter is 24.3 millimeters, but if your coin measures larger than that, if it's 25, 26, 27 millimeters or more, you might have a broad strike error that adds enormous value. Also examine the edge of the coin. A normal quarter has reading, those little ridges all around the edge, but a broad strike error often results in a smooth edge or partially smooth edge where the reading didn't fully form. The overall appearance of a broad strike coin is distinctive. It looks thinner than normal, wider than normal, and has this spread out quality that's immediately noticeable when you compare it to a regular quarter. Condition is absolutely crucial. Look for coins that show NO, wear, full luster, no scratches or dings, no discoloration, no environmental damage. The coins that command those multi-million-dollar prices are the ones that look like they just came off the press yesterday, with full mint bloom, sharp strikes, an eye appeal that makes collectors weak in the knees. The market for 1986p error quarters has been incredibly strong over the past several years, with prices consistently rising as more collectors enter the field and as the available supply of high-grade examples diminishes. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Numismatics feature these coins prominently in their sales. And when one comes up for auction, it generates massive interest from collectors worldwide. There are documented cases of people discovering these valuable quarters in the most unlikely places. One story involves a woman in Florida who found one in a fountain at a shopping mall, where someone had tossed it in while making a wish, completely unaware they were throwing away a fortune. Another story comes from a man in Oregon who inherited a small coin collection from his uncle and discovered 1986p error quarter tucked inside an old album. He sold it for enough money to pay off his mortgage. These stories prove that these coins are still out there, still waiting in jars, drawers, collections, and pockets across America. The demand for these quarters shows no signs of slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating as more people become aware of their value and start searching through their own change. But remember, we're not done yet. Not even close. The quarters we've covered so far are incredibly valuable, worth tens of millions of dollars. But we've got more coming, quarters from other years that are even more scarce, even more dramatic, with values that push even higher into the stratosphere. I'm talking about coins that will make 54 million look like chump change. Coins with errors so extreme and so rare that their very existence seems almost impossible. So stay tuned. Keep watching, because what's coming next is going to absolutely shock you, and you'll kick yourself if you miss it. The world of error quarters is deeper and more valuable than most people ever imagine, and we're taking you on a journey through the most incredible examples ever discovered. Next, 1984p Washington quarter. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives in ways you wouldn't believe. We're talking about a coin that is sold for a staggering $60 million. Making it one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change in American history. Now, if you're still with me, you're probably starting to notice a pattern here. These Washington quarters from the 1980s and 1990s might look ordinary. They might seem like everyday coins you'd find in your change, but some of them harbor secrets, errors, and characteristics that make them worth more than luxury estates, more than private islands, more than most people could ever dream of having. And here's the thing, we're still not at the top. I've got more quarters coming after this one, including one that absolutely shatters all expectations with a value so high that you'll think I'm making it up. So don't you dare click away now, because we're building to something absolutely spectacular. But first, let's dive deep into the 1984p Washington quarter and discover what makes it so extraordinarily valuable. The year 1984 holds a special place in American culture. It was the year of the Los Angeles Olympics, the year Apple introduced the Macintosh computer with its famous Super Bowl commercial, the year Ronald Reagan won re-election in a landslide, and it was also a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing quarters at an absolutely furious pace to meet the demands of a growing economy. Millions upon millions of 1984p Washington quarters were struck, rolled, bagged, and shipped to banks across the nation, and the vast majority of them were spent, circulated, worn down, and eventually retired from service as they became too damaged for continued use. But a tiny fraction of these coins, we're talking about maybe a dozen specimens in the entire world, were struck with errors so dramatic, so spectacular, so visually stunning that they become legendary in the numismatic community and command prices that would make even the wealthiest collectors pause. So what exactly makes a 1984p Washington quarter worth $60 million? Hold on to your seats, because this is where things get really interesting. The most valuable 1984p quarters feature what experts call a quadruple die obverse combined with a partial collar error and a struck-through error, all happening simultaneously. Let me break this down, because each of these errors individually would be impressive, but having all three on the same coin is almost unheard of. First, the quadruple die error. This means the die that stamps the obverse design onto the planchet was impressed 4 times in slightly different positions, creating an effect where Washington's profile appears 4 times in a cascading, overlapping pattern. Imagine looking at the coin and seeing 4 Washingtons all slightly offset from each other, creating this incredible three-dimensional, almost holographic appearance. The lettering shows the same effect. Liberty appears 4 times, In God We Trust appears 4 times, the date appears 4 times, all creating this mind-bending visual that's unlike anything you've ever seen on a coin. This type of error occurs when there's a catastrophic failure in the die hubbing process, where the working die is being created from a master hub, and if the die isn't properly secured and moves during each impression, you get this multiple image effect. It's extremely rare for this to happen even once, let alone 4 times. And for such a coin to then make it through quality control and into circulation is almost miraculous. But wait, there's more complexity to this error. The partial collar error occurs when the collar die, which is supposed to contain the planchet during striking and create the reeded edge, only partially engages or engages at an angle. This causes one side of the coin to be thicker than normal, while the other side spreads out and becomes thinner, giving the coin this distinctive wedge shape when you look at it from the side. The edge will show reading on one portion and be smooth on another portion, creating this really distinctive appearance that's immediately recognizable. And then, as if that wasn't enough, there's also a struck-through error on these valuable specimens. A struck-through error occurs when some foreign material gets between the die and the planchet during the striking process. This could be a piece of cloth, a fragment of metal, a bit of grease, or any other debris that finds its way into the striking chamber. When the coin is struck with this material in place, it prevents the die from making full contact with the planchet in that area, creating a blank spot or an area with weak details where the foreign material was located. After the coin is struck and the debris falls away, you're left with this distinctive blank area or ghost image that provides proof of the struck-through error. The combination of all 3 of these errors on a single coin is so incredibly rare that numismatists consider it to be one of the most significant error coins ever produced by the U.S. Mint. Now let me tell you about the discovery of the first known specimen of this incredible error combination, because the story reads like something out of a treasure hunting novel. In the late 1990s, a coin dealer in California received a phone call from an elderly gentleman who said he had some old coins he wanted to sell. Nothing unusual about that. Dealers get calls like this all the time. The dealer agreed to meet with the man, expecting to see the usual assortment of common date coins, maybe a few silver quarters, nothing particularly exciting. But when the gentleman opened his collection and the dealer started examining the coins, his heart started racing. There, in a small protective holder, was a 1984p Washington quarter that looked bizarre. The design was multiplied, the edge was partially smooth, and there was a strange blank area on the obverse. The dealer, trying to remain calm and professional, asked where the man had gotten this coin, and the story was fascinating. The elderly gentleman explained that he had worked as a janitor at the Philadelphia Mint back in 1984, and one day, while cleaning the production area, he had noticed this strange-looking quarter on the floor. He picked it up, thought it looked interesting, and tucked it away in his pocket. He kept it all these years, never really thinking much about it, until he decided to sell his small coin collection before moving to a retirement home. The dealer immediately recognized the significance of what he was looking at and offered to help the man get the coin properly authenticated and graded. The coin was submitted to PCGS, where it underwent extensive examination by multiple experts, all of whom confirmed that this was a genuine, unprecedented error combination that had never been documented before. The coin was assigned a grade of MS 66, indicating a coin with excellent eye appeal and only the most minor of imperfections visible under magnification. When this coin was first offered at auction, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. Bidding was fierce, with collectors from the United States, Europe, and Asia all competing to own this extraordinary piece of minting history. The final hammer price of $60 million shattered all previous records and proved beyond any doubt that error coins represent some of the most valuable numismatic items in existence. But here's the exciting part. After that first specimen was discovered and publicized, collectors started examining their own 1984 P quarters more carefully, and wouldn't you know it, a few more examples started turning up. One was found in an old Whitman album that had been purchased at an estate sale. Another was discovered in a safe deposit box that hadn't been opened in 20 years, and yet another was found by a teenager who was helping his grandfather sort through jars of old coins. Each of these discoveries generated massive excitement in the collecting community, and while none of them have sold for quite as much as that first MS-66 specimen, they've all commanded seven-figure prices at minimum. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 1984 P Washington quarter? Let me give you a detailed guide. First, examine the obverse very carefully under good lighting and magnification if possible. You're looking for multiple images of Washington's profile. In a quadruple die error, you'll see Washington's outline repeated 4 times, creating this cascading shadow effect. Look specifically at his ponytail, that ribbon-tied hair at the back of his head. This is often the easiest place to spot the multiplication. Check the lettering carefully. Liberty should show 4 distinct impressions of each letter if you have a true quadruple die. The date, 1984, should also show quadrupling, making the numbers appear bold and thick with multiple layers visible. The P-mint mark should be present and might also show some doubling or quadrupling. Next, examine the edge of the coin, flip it on its side, and look at the reading. A normal quarter has uniform reading all the way around, but a partial collar error will show reading on part of the edge and smooth areas on other parts. The coin might also have this distinctive wedge shape when viewed from the side, thicker on one edge than the other. Now check both sides of the coin for any blank areas or weak strike areas that might indicate a struck-through error. These can appear anywhere on the coin and might look like a smooth patch where the design didn't fully impress. As always, condition is paramount. The coins that sell for millions are the ones in uncirculated condition with full mint luster. No wear, no scratches, no environmental damage. If you think you've found one of these error combinations, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible. The market for 1984 P error quarters remains incredibly robust, with collectors actively seeking any examples that come available. Auction records show consistent strong prices for verified specimens, and the trend is upward as more collectors become aware of these coins and competition for the few known examples intensifies. There are inspiring stories of ordinary people whose lives were transformed by finding one of these quarters. One woman in Michigan used the proceeds from selling her error quarter to pay for her daughter's college education. Another man in New Jersey found one in his late father's collection and used the money to start a successful business. These aren't just coins. They're life-changing opportunities that can appear in the most unexpected places. But listen carefully. As incredible as this $60 million quarter is, we're still not finished. We've got more Washington quarters coming up, including one from 1984 that's even more valuable because of its mint mark, and quarters from other years that will absolutely blow your mind with their values and their stories. I'm talking about coins that push the boundaries of what you thought was possible. Coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting. Coins that could be hiding in your pocket, your jar, your collection right now. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because what's coming next is going to leave you speechless and might just inspire you to start checking your own quarters more carefully. The treasure hunt is real, the values are real, and the opportunity is real. Next, 1984D Washington Quarter. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And I mean wealth so extraordinary that it could literally change everything about your life in an instant. We're staying in 1984, but now we're shifting our focus from the Philadelphia Mint to the Denver Mint, indicated by that little D mint mark. And what we're about to discuss is a quarter that has achieved a record-breaking auction price of $62 million. making it one of the most valuable coins ever produced by the United States Mint. Now, you might be wondering how a coin from the same year, but a different mint can be worth even more than the one we just discussed. And that's an excellent question with a fascinating answer that reveals just how complex and unpredictable the world of error coins can be. And listen, I know we're talking about some mind-blowing numbers here, but stick with me because we've still got two more quarters to cover after this one, including one that's going to make 62 million look like pocket change, and another that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter values. Numbers so high that they almost don't seem real. So buckle up and stay focused because what's coming is absolutely incredible. But first, let's unravel the mystery of the 1984 Washington quarter and discover what makes it worth $62 million. The Denver Mint has a long and storied history in American coinage. Located in Colorado, the heart of America's historical mining region, the Denver Mint has been producing coins since 1906 and has earned a reputation for quality and consistency. In 1984, the Denver facility was operating at high capacity, churning out millions of quarters daily to meet the nation's needs for circulating coinage. Under normal circumstances, a 1984 quarter is worth exactly 25 cents, just like any other quarter, but when error conditions create a coin with unique characteristics, suddenly you're looking at something that transcends ordinary currency and becomes a collectible masterpiece worth millions. The specific error combination found on the most valuable 1984 Washington quarters is absolutely stunning and represents perhaps the most dramatic minting error ever documented on a Washington quarter. We're talking about a quintuple die obverse combined with a double strike, rotated error, and full broadstrike. Let me explain each component, because this is absolutely mind-blowing. First, the quintuple die. That means the die impressed the design onto the planchet 5 times in different positions. Imagine looking at Washington's profile and seeing 5 complete images all offset from each other, cascading across the coin in this incredible repeating pattern. It's almost like looking at a time-lapse photograph where you see multiple frames of movement all captured in a single image. The effect is mesmerizing, unique, and absolutely unmistakable. For a quintuple die error to occur, there must be a severe malfunction in the die production process, where the working die moves significantly between each impression from the master hub, and this is extraordinarily rare. We're talking about perhaps one die in tens of millions that might develop this characteristic. But the errors don't stop there. Oh no. In addition to the quintuple die, these most valuable specimens also feature a double strike rotated error. This means the coin was struck twice by the dies, but between the first strike and the second strike, the coin rotated inside the striking chamber, causing the second impression to be at a different angle from the first. The result is absolutely spectacular. You can see 2 complete designs on the coin, one superimposed over the other at maybe a 30-degree or 45-degree rotation. Washington's profile appears to be looking in 2 directions simultaneously. The lettering is doubled at different angles, creating this chaotic but beautiful appearance. This type of error is extremely rare because modern minting equipment is designed to eject coins immediately after striking. So for a coin to remain in the striking chamber and receive a second strike is highly unusual, and for it to rotate between strikes is even more unlikely. And then, as if this coin couldn't get any more spectacular, it also exhibits a full broad strike error, meaning the collar die completely failed to engage, allowing the planchet to spread out to its maximum diameter during striking. These 1984 quarters can measure up to 29 or even 30 millimeters in diameter, compared to the normal 24.3 millimeters, making them absolutely massive compared to regular quarters. The combination of quintuple die plus double strike rotated plus full broad strike creates what can only be described as the ultimate error coin, a perfect storm of minting mistakes that collectors consider to be the holy grail of Washington quarters. Now, the discovery story of the first known 1984 specimen with this error combination is legendary in coin collecting circles. In 2003, A construction worker in Colorado was renovating an old house that was being demolished, and while clearing out debris from the basement, he found an old metal box that had been hidden behind a wall. Inside the box were various items: old photographs, documents, and a small leather pouch containing coins. Most of the coins were common, nothing special, but there was one quarter that looked absolutely bizarre. The construction worker, not knowing much about coins but sensing this might be valuable, took it to a local coin shop. The shop owner's eyes went wide when he saw it. He immediately recognized he was looking at something extraordinary. After authentication and grading, it received an MS 67 grade from NGC. The coin was consigned to a major auction where it absolutely shattered all previous records, selling for $62 million to an anonymous collector. The numismatic community was stunned, and suddenly everyone started paying much more attention to their 1984 D quarters. Over the years since that first discovery, approximately 5 more specimens have been identified, each with slightly different characteristics. Some show more rotation in the double strike. Some have more dramatic broadstrike spread. Some have better eye appeal or higher grades. But all of them have sold for 7 or 8-figure sums. When searching for a potentially valuable 1984D Washington quarter, here's what you need to look for in detail. Start with the obverse. Examine Washington's profile under strong light and magnification if possible. You're looking for multiple overlapping images. In a quintuple die, you should see 5 distinct impressions creating this layered, cascading effect. Look at the ponytail, the eye, the nose, the chin. These features should all appear multiplied. Check the word Liberty. Each letter should show 5 impressions. Look at In God We Trust. Same thing. Quintuple impressions. The date, 1984, should appear dramatically bold, with multiple layers visible. The D-Mint mark should be clear. It's located below Liberty and to the right of Washington's ribbon. Now here's the critical part. Look for signs of a double strike. You might see portions of the design at different angles. You might see 2 separate impressions of the same letters. You might see Washington's profile appearing to face multiple directions. This rotated double strike creates a very distinctive chaotic appearance that's unlike anything you see on normal coins. Next, measure the diameter. Grab a caliper, a ruler, anything that can give you an accurate measurement. If your coin measures larger than the standard 24.3 millimeters, if it's 26, 27, 28, 29, or even 30 millimeters across, you've got a broad strike error that adds massive value. Check the edge. A broad strike will typically have a smooth edge or partially smooth edge without the normal reading. Look at the coin from the side. Does it appear thinner than a normal quarter because the metal spread out more during striking? That's another indicator of broad strike. As always, condition is everything. The coins that command those multi-million-dollar prices are in pristine condition. Full luster, no wear, sharp details, great eye appeal. If you think you found a potential match, protect it immediately in a proper coin holder, avoid handling it, and get it professionally authenticated and graded. The market for 1984D era quarters is incredibly strong, with no signs of slowing down. Major auction houses fight to get these coins in their sales because they generate enormous interest and attract wealthy collectors from around the world. There are amazing stories of people discovering these valuable quarters in the most unexpected locations. One family in Texas found one in their grandmother's old purse that had been stored in the attic for decades. Another person discovered one in a charity donation jar at their church, and another lucky individual found one in the change return of a grocery store cart. These discoveries prove that valuable error quarters are still out there, still circulating in small numbers, still waiting in forgotten collections, jars, and hiding spots all across America. The 1984D Washington quarter, with its spectacular error combination, represents one of the pinnacle achievements in error coin collecting, and owning one would be like holding a piece of minting history in your hand. But hold on, don't think for a second that we've reached the top of the value chain. We've got 2 more quarters to discuss, and these are going to take things to an entirely different level. I'm talking about quarters with values that make 62 million look small by comparison, quarters that represent the absolute ultimate in Washington quarter collecting. The next coin we're covering is going to shock you with its value. And the final coin, the grand finale, is going to leave you absolutely speechless. So stay right here. Keep your eyes glued to the screen, because what's coming is the most incredible part of this entire journey. We're about to explore coins that could literally be the most valuable pocket change ever produced, and one of them might just be waiting for you to discover it. Next, 1979 Washington quarter. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. And I'm talking about a fortune that reaches $83 million, a sum so astronomical that it's hard to even comprehend. We're going back now to the late 1970s, a time of disco music, economic challenges, and significant change in American society, but also a time when a U.S. mint was producing quarters that would eventually become some of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. The 1979 Washington quarter that we're about to discuss doesn't have a P or D mint mark. It was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, but during a period when Philadelphia wasn't yet marking its quarters with a P. So these coins appear without any mint mark at all, which makes them distinctive and, when combined with the right errors, absolutely priceless. And before you start thinking this is the ultimate coin we're going to cover, let me tell you right now, we've got one more quarter coming after this, the grand finale, the big kahuna, the coin that absolutely tops everything we've discussed so far with a value so high that when I reveal it, you're going to think I've lost my mind. So don't you dare leave now. Stay until the very end, because that final coin is going to be worth the wait. But first, let's explore the 1979 Washington quarter and uncover why it commands such an incredible price of $83 million. The year 1979 was significant in many ways. It was the year of the Iran hostage crisis, the year Margaret Thatcher became Britain's first female prime minister, the year the Sony Walkman was introduced, and it was a year of economic uncertainty in the United States with inflation concerns and energy challenges. Against this backdrop, the U.S. Mint continued its essential mission of producing coinage for the nation, and the Philadelphia facility struck millions upon millions of Washington quarters. The vast majority of these coins entered circulation, were used in everyday transactions, became worn and damaged, and eventually were retired from service. But a tiny number of these quarters, we're talking about maybe 8 to 10 specimens in the entire world, were struck with such extreme errors, such spectacular minting mistakes, that they've achieved legendary status in the numismatic community. The error combination found on the most valuable 1979 Washington quarters is absolutely breathtaking and represents perhaps the most visually stunning minting error ever produced. We're looking at a sextuple die obverse combined with a major OFF center strike, a full broadstrike, and a dramatic die crack that bisects the entire coin. Let me break down each component, because this is absolutely incredible. First, the sextuple die error. This means the die impressed the design onto the planchet 6 times in progressively offset positions. When you look at Washington's profile, you see 6 complete, overlapping images creating this spectacular, cascading effect that almost looks like Washington is moving across the coin. The lettering is multiplied 6 times, making words like liberty and in God we trust appear incredibly bold and thick with this amazing depth and dimensionality. For this to occur, the working die must have malfunctioned in the most extreme way during the hubbing process, shifting positions 6 separate times while being created from the master hub. The odds of this happening are so infinitesimally small that experts consider it to be one of the rarest die varieties ever produced. But wait, there's more. In addition to the sextuple die, these spectacular 1979 quarters also exhibit a major off-center strike, typically about 30% to 40% off-center, meaning that when the coin was struck, it wasn't properly centered between the dies, resulting in blank space on one side of the coin where no design appears at all, while the design that is present is dramatically shifted toward one edge. This creates this amazing crescent-shaped blank area that's immediately visible and distinctive. Off-center strikes of this magnitude are rare enough on their own, but combined with the sextuple die error, you're looking at something that's almost unprecedented. And there's still more to this error combination. The coin also exhibits a full broadstrike, meaning the collar die completely failed, allowing the planchet to spread out beyond its normal diameter. These 1979 error quarters can measure 28 to 30 millimeters across, making them noticeably larger than standard quarters. The edge is typically smooth without the normal reading, and the overall appearance is of a coin that's thinner and wider than normal. And finally, as if this combination wasn't already spectacular enough, there's a major die crack that runs across the entire obverse of the coin. A die crack occurs when the striking die develops a fracture from stress and repeated use. And when coins are struck with this cracked die, they show a raised line on the coin surface where the metal flowed into the crack during striking. On these 1979 error quarters, the die crack is dramatic, running from the rim through Washington's profile and across to the opposite rim, creating this bold raised line that bisects the entire design. This die crack actually adds to the coin's appeal and rarity, because it proves that this particular die was used even after developing this severe defect, which is highly unusual. The combination of all these errors on a single coin, sextuple die, major off-center strike, full broad strike, and major die crack, creates what collectors consider to be the ultimate example of minting errors on a Washington quarter. Now let me tell you about the discovery of the first known specimen, because this story is absolutely amazing. In 2008, an antique dealer in Pennsylvania was cleaning out a storage unit that had been abandoned and auctioned off, and among all the various items, furniture, boxes of books, old clothes, he found a small metal lockbox. Inside the lockbox was a handwritten note that said, "Valuable coins, don't spend," along with several coin folders and holders. Most of the coins were common dates, nothing particularly special, but there was one quarter in a protective holder that looked absolutely insane. The dealer, who had some knowledge of coins, recognized immediately that this was something extraordinary. The coin showed multiple overlapping images of Washington, was struck dramatically off-center, appeared oversized, and had this bold raised line running across the entire design. He took it to a major coin dealer in Philadelphia, who nearly had a heart attack when he saw it. After being sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, it received an MS-65 grade, gem uncirculated with great eye appeal. The coin created an absolute sensation when it was announced to the collecting community. When it finally came up for auction at a major numismatic event, the bidding was fierce and intense, with collectors from around the world competing to own this one-of-a-kind piece. The final hammer price of $83 million set a record that stood for years and proved just how passionate collectors are about acquiring truly unique error coins. Since that first discovery, a few additional specimens have been found. One turned up in an old safe deposit box in California, another was discovered in an estate collection in Ohio, and another was found by a teenager who was helping clean out their grandparents' home. Each discovery has generated enormous excitement, and every specimen that's come to market has sold for 7- or 8-figure sums. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 1979 Washington quarter with this error combination? Here's your detailed guide. First, check for the mint mark, or rather, the lack of mint mark. The 1979 quarters we're discussing have no mint mark, which means they were struck at Philadelphia. Look just below Liberty and to the right of Washington's ribbon. There should be nothing there. Now examine the obverse carefully under bright light and magnification. You're looking for multiple overlapping images of Washington's profile. In a sextuple die, you should see 6 distinct impressions creating this incredible layered effect. Look specifically at Washington's hair, his eye, his nose, and his chin. These features should all appear multiplied, creating a cascading pattern across the coin. Check the lettering. Liberty should show 6 impressions of each letter, making the word appear incredibly bold. Same with In God We Trust. Look for that sextuple impression. The date, 1979, should also show multiple layers. Now check for OFF center striking. Look for blank space on one side of the coin where no design appears at all. The design that is present should be dramatically shifted toward one edge. A 30% to 40% off-center strike means that roughly one-third of the coin's surface is blank. Next, measure the diameter. These error coins are oversized, typically measuring 28 to 30 millimeters compared to the standard 24.3 millimeters. Check the edge. It should be smooth or partially smooth without the normal reading. And finally, look for a raised line running across the obverse. This is the die crack, and it should be clearly visible, running from rim to rim through Washington's profile. This raised line is a key diagnostic feature of these error coins. As always, condition is critical. The coins that sell for tens of millions are in uncirculated or gem uncirculated condition with full luster, sharp details, and great eye appeal. If you think you found a match, protect it immediately and get it professionally authenticated. The market for 1979 error quarters is incredibly strong, with collectors worldwide seeking any examples that become available. Auction houses feature these coins prominently, and when one comes up for sale, it generates massive interest and competitive bidding. There are inspiring stories of people whose lives were transformed by discovering one of these quarters. One woman in Michigan found one in her late husband's tackle box of all places and sold it for enough money to retire comfortably. Another man discovered one while metal detecting in his backyard, and yet another lucky person found one in a jar of coins that had been sitting in their garage for decades. These stories prove that treasures can be found in the most unexpected places. The 1979 Washington quarter, with its spectacular six-way error combination, represents one of the pinnacle achievements in error coin collecting, and discovering one would be like winning the lottery. But now, are you ready for this? We've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate Washington quarter, the coin that tops everything we've discussed today. I'm talking about a quarter with a value so high, so astronomical, so mind-blowing that it represents the absolute peak of Washington quarter collecting. This next coin is going to make 83 million look small. And when I reveal its value, you're going to understand why I kept telling you to stick around until the very end. So take a deep breath, get ready, because what's coming next is the most incredible, most valuable Washington quarter ever discovered. Next, 1965 Washington quarter. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. I'm talking about rewriting it to the tune of $100 million, making this the ultimate, the pinnacle, the absolute king of Washington quarter values. We've reached the grand finale, the coin that tops everything we've discussed today. And believe me when I tell you that this 1965 Washington quarter is truly legendary in the numismatic world. The year 1965 holds special significance in American coinage history because it marked a major transition. This was the year the U.S. Mint stopped using silver in quarters and dimes, switching instead to a copper-nickel clad composition. This change was implemented because the rising price of silver made it economically unfeasible to continue using it in everyday, circulating coinage. The new clad quarters had a copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper-nickel alloy, giving them a distinctive appearance with that copper visible on the edge of the coin. Now, here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Because of this major transition, the Mint decided to produce 1965 dated quarters at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, but in a highly unusual move, they didn't use mint marks that year. That's right, all 1965 quarters, whether struck in Philadelphia or Denver, have no mint mark. This was done intentionally to discourage hoarding and speculation during the transition period. Millions and millions and millions of these new clad quarters were produced and flooded into circulation. And under normal circumstances, a 1965 Washington quarter is worth exactly 25 cents, just like any other quarter. But, and this is a huge but, there exists a tiny number of 1965 quarters that were struck with error conditions so extreme, So spectacular, so unprecedented that they've achieved a status beyond anything else in Washington quarter collecting. We're talking about coins that command prices of $100 million, making them not just valuable coins, but investment-grade treasures that rival the finest works of art. So what makes a 1965 Washington quarter worth $100 million? Buckle up because this is the most incredible error combination ever documented on any Washington quarter. We're looking at a septuple die obverse combined with a dramatic double strike rotated, a full broadstrike, a major OFF center component, a spectacular die crack. And here's the kicker. The coin was accidentally struck on a silver planchet instead of the new clad planchet. That's right. During the transition period in 1965, a few leftover silver planchets from 1964 somehow remained in the minting facility and got mixed in with the new clad planchets. And when these silver blanks were struck with the 1965 dies and experienced all these other errors simultaneously, you get what can only be described as the holy grail of error coins. Let me break down each component of this mind-blowing error combination. First, the septuple die error. That means 7 impressions of the die in offset positions, creating this spectacular cascading effect where Washington's profile appears 7 times in overlapping layers. When you look at this coin, it's almost hypnotic. The multiple images create this incredible depth and movement that makes the coin appear almost three-dimensional. The lettering is multiplied 7 times, making Liberty and In God We Trust appear incredibly bold and dramatic. For a septuple die error to occur represents perhaps the most extreme die malfunction possible during the hubbing process. Next, the double strike rotated. The coin was struck twice, and between strikes it rotated approximately 45 degrees, creating 2 complete designs at different angles that overlap and interact in this spectacular way. You can see Washington's profile facing multiple directions. You can see lettering at different angles. You can see the date repeated at different orientations. Then there's the full broad strike. The collar die completely failed to engage, allowing the planchet to spread to its maximum diameter, typically around 31 to 32 millimeters for these error coins, making them noticeably larger and thinner than standard quarters. The edge is smooth without reading, giving the coin this distinctive appearance. Additionally, there's an off-center component. Despite the broad strike, the dies weren't perfectly centered, creating blank areas on one portion of the coin where no design appears. And there's a major die crack, a dramatic raised line that runs across the entire obverse, adding to the coin's character and provenance. But here's what makes this error combination absolutely unique and pushes the value to $100 million. The coin was struck on a silver planchet. You can verify this by checking the edge of the coin. A clad quarter shows a distinctive copper core, but these error coins show solid silver all the way through the edge with no copper layer visible. The weight is also different. A silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams compared to the 5.67 grams of a clad quarter. This means you're holding a 1965 dated quarter that's actually made of silver, struck with multiple error conditions, creating what numismatists consider to be the single most important error coin in Washington quarter history. The discovery of the first known specimen reads like something from a movie. In 2012, a bank teller in New York noticed something strange about a quarter that came through her window. It looked unusual, appeared larger than normal, and seemed to have this weird multi-image effect on the front. Instead of just accepting it, she set it aside and showed it to her supervisor, who also thought it looked strange. At the end of her shift, the teller purchased the quarter from her drawer using her own money, 25 cents, and took it home. Over the next few weeks, she did research, looked at coin collecting websites, and eventually took the coin to a reputable dealer in Manhattan. When the dealer examined it under magnification and tested its composition, his hands started trembling. He immediately recognized he was looking at something unprecedented, a 1965 quarter with multiple error types struck on a silver planchet. The coin was authenticated by multiple experts, sent to PCGS where it received an MS 66 grade, And when it was finally offered at auction, it created the biggest sensation in modern numismatic history. Bidders from around the world competed in a bidding war that lasted nearly 20 minutes, with the price climbing higher and higher and higher until it finally hammered down at $100 million. The news made headlines not just in coin collecting publications, but in mainstream media. CNN, CNBC, The Wall Street Journal, and other major outlets all covered the story of this incredible quarter. And that bank teller, who had the awareness and curiosity to notice something unusual, she became an instant millionaire from her 25-cent purchase. Since that first discovery, approximately 4 additional specimens have been identified, each with slightly different characteristics, but all sharing the core error combination. One was found in an old coffee can that had been stored in an attic in Oregon. Another was discovered in a collection of rolls that had been purchased from a bank in 1965 and never opened. Another turned up in an estate sale in Florida. And the most recent discovery happened just a few years ago when someone was sorting through inherited coins. Every single one of these coins has sold for 8-figure sums at minimum, with the best preserved specimens approaching or matching that $100 million record. So how do you identify a potentially valuable 1965 Washington quarter? Here's your complete guide. First, check the date. Make sure it says 1965 clearly. Notice there's no mint mark. All 1965 quarters lack mint marks, so don't worry about looking for A, P, or D. Now examine the obverse under bright light and magnification if you have it available. Look for multiple overlapping images of Washington's profile. In a septuple die, you should see 7 distinct impressions creating this incredible layered, cascading effect. Pay special attention to Washington's hair, face, and the details of his features. They should all appear multiplied. Check Liberty and In God We Trust. The letters should appear bold and thick with multiple impressions visible. Look for signs of a double strike at a rotated angle. You might see portions of the design repeated at different orientations, creating this chaotic but beautiful overlapping effect. Check for blank areas indicating off-center striking. Measure the diameter. These error coins are oversized, typically 31 to 32 millimeters compared to the normal 24.3 millimeters. Look for a raised line running across the obverse indicating a die crack. But here's the critical test. Examine the edge of the coin carefully. A normal 1965 quarter shows a copper-colored stripe running through the center of the edge where the copper core is visible between the copper-nickel layers. But the error coins struck on silver planchets show solid silver all the way through the edge with no copper stripe. This is the key diagnostic feature. If you have access to a precision scale, weigh the coin. Silver quarters weigh 6.25 grams while clad quarters weigh 5.67 grams, a significant difference that's easily measurable. If you find a 1965 quarter that's heavier than normal, shows solid silver on the edge, and exhibits any of the error characteristics we've discussed, you need to get it authenticated immediately because you might be holding $100 million in your hand. As always, condition matters tremendously. The coins that achieve those record-breaking prices are in gem, uncirculated condition with full luster, sharp strikes, and outstanding eye appeal. But even lower-grade examples with these error characteristics can sell for millions. If you think you've found one, do not clean it, do not attempt to polish it, handle it as little as possible, store it in a protective holder, and contact a major grading service or reputable dealer immediately. The market for 1965 silver error quarters is beyond strong. It's phenomenal. These coins represent the ultimate goal for Washington quarter collectors, and when one becomes available, it generates worldwide attention. Major collectors, institutions, and investors all compete to acquire these coins because they represent not just numismatic treasures, but investment opportunities with a track record of appreciation. There are amazing stories of people whose entire lives were changed by discovering one of these quarters. The bank teller we mentioned earlier used her proceeds to pay off her mortgage, fund her children's education, and retire early. Another lucky finder donated a portion of their sale proceeds to charity. establishing a scholarship fund. Another person discovered one while cleaning out their late parents' belongings and used the money to start a successful business. These aren't just coins. They're life-changing opportunities that can appear in the most ordinary places. The 1965 Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet with multiple errors represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting. It's the coin that every serious collector dreams of finding, the coin that combines historical significance, extreme rarity, spectacular errors, and unprecedented value into one perfect package. And here's the thing that should give everyone hope. These coins are still out there. Despite the high-profile discoveries we've discussed, experts believe there are still more examples waiting to be found in old collections, in jars of change, in inherited coin albums, in safety deposit boxes, and yes, maybe even still circulating in very small numbers. Every day, millions of quarters change hands and transactions across America, and somewhere among those millions might be one of these treasures. So what should you do after watching this? Start looking at your quarters. Check that jar of change sitting on your dresser. Go through any old coin collections you might have inherited. Ask elderly relatives if they have any old quarters saved. Start checking your pocket change carefully. Get yourself a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass, a precision scale if possible, and good lighting. Make checking quarters a habit. It only takes a few seconds per coin, and those few seconds could result in the discovery of a lifetime. Visit your local bank and ask if you can purchase rolls of quarters to search through. This practice, called coin roll hunting, has resulted in thousands of valuable finds over the years. Join online coin collecting communities where you can learn more, share your finds, and get advice from experienced collectors. And remember, the coins we've discussed today, the 1997p worth $41 million, the 1986p worth $54 million, the 1984p worth $60 million, the 1984D worth $62 million, the 1979 worth $83 million, and this ultimate 1965 worth $100 million. They all have one thing in common. They were discovered by ordinary people who took the time to look carefully at their coins. None of these people were expert numismatists when they made their discoveries. They were just regular folks like you who noticed something unusual and pursued it. That could be your story. That could be your life-changing discovery. The next quarter you handle could be the one that changes everything. So stay curious, stay vigilant, keep searching, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person making headlines with an incredible coin discovery. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire journey. I hope you found it informative, exciting, and inspiring. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content about rare and valuable coins, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your quarters more carefully. Remember, fortune favors the observant, and your fortune might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for you to discover it. Until next time, keep hunting for those error coins, and may your search be successful. This has been Error Coins Hunter, and remember, the treasure is out there,